Good afternoon to all our distinguished participants. And we are running late, so I will try to finish my presentation within 20 minutes. So as you are all aware, the climate change is taking place. Okay. Right. There's a bit of a disconnect. Just give me a minute. Right. So as you have already heard from our eminent speakers, we are facing a climate emergency. This was declared by Professor Fenner, also at the University of Cambridge some time back. We had a special issue on urban flood resilience. And rising global temperatures, intense and uncertain weather patterns, unregulated development, urban forms increasing hard, impermeable surfaces, exposure of urban populations to catastrophic floods. These have been highlighted by the earlier speakers. Now the main challenge is all these things are happening. So what do we do about it? So in this brief presentation, I will try to highlight the some of the measures which we can take, especially related to flooding and urban flooding. So as you all know, before development, we had open surfaces. There was a nice groundwater recharge. There was no groundwater shortage. And so a lot of recharge and very little overflow over the surfaces. Now with the urbanization and development of houses and human habitations, we have constructed over the green recharging surfaces. So very little recharge is taking place. And instead, the overflows on the surface channels has increased, as you can see in the figure on the right. Then, so the hydrologic response to development can be seen in the bottommost figure. Earlier, if you say had a flood peak in 45 minutes of about 100 units. Now, because of increased rainfall, increased surfaces, decreased recharge, now the same flood peak is reached in 15 minutes, and the peak is also increased because everything is now flowing over the surface. Now, the past 2 years data reveals that all state capitals have been experiencing more than 50 millimeters per day of rainfall several times in a year, and even more than 100 millimeters per hour. Coastal cities are also vulnerable because we have long coastline. And coastal cities like Mumbai, Chennai, Kochi, etc. have experienced catastrophic flooding since 2005 from extreme rainfall. There is a special report on oceans and cryosphere released last year, and which indicates that the global mean sea level is not only rising, but it is accelerating. And the numbers are there in these next 4 lines. And the main conclusion is that tiny islands and low-lying cities will expect to experience extreme sea levels rise by 2050, including Mumbai. Now, coming to the problem and the challenges. See, whenever we have a drainage system, everybody says increase the size of the drainage, put an extra pipe, and all those things. But we really want to do this. Where is the space in the cities? All the houses have already been constructed. So if I want to dig up the road, it will involve disrupting the traffic, relaying the telephone pipelines, relaying the water supply pipelines, and so on. So this is very costly and very disruptive. And until it is completed, the problem will not be solved. So we did such a project in Grant Road about 10 years back. It was just a 100-meter stretch. Even in that, it took them 6 months just to relocate the water supply pipeline. So these are the issues. So with these difficulties, we now have to look at alternative measures. So we can classify the alternative measures into non-structural measures and structural measures, which use sensors for rainfall. So let us have a look at these one by one. Now, after 2005 floods, at that time the IMD was not as modern as it is today. That time they had only two manually recording weather stations, which could record the rainfall at 8:30 and 5:30 in the evening. And when it was raining continuously, they had no idea of how much it is raining and where the flood is happening. So after 2005 floods, we installed 60 automatic weather stations for the Municipal Corporation of Bombay, and they were immediately functioning from June 2006. So these automatic weather stations, they can record rainfall at every minute intervals, but we set them to record at 50-minute intervals. So, and we installed them in each subcatchment, forming a grid. These are manned 24 hours. They are on the top of fire stations and all the BMC offices. And we also installed a flow gauge, ultrasonic flow gauge on the Methi River at that time. This shows the further details of the automatic weather station. Now it is even at that time it cost around 2 lakh rupees per piece, including automatic the annual maintenance contract. But now if you see it on Amazon, it is available for 58,000 rupees. So anybody can buy it and install it on their rooftop. In USA, many of the schools are having it on their rooftops, and the children do it as exercise even in the 8th class. Bottom figure, you should see the control room, all the hotlines connected. So whenever the rainfall exceeds the threshold, everybody is informed. This shows the details of the flow gauge installed at Methi River. It basically shows the structural arrangement for mounting the ultrasonic flow gauge. As you can see, it looks just like a camera, as you can see in the X-ray machine. Now, this figure shows the automatic weather stations. Now, these have all been connected through internet, and there's also a MCGM app available. So anybody who has an app can download this, and they can see the rainfall happening. Now, in the past 24 hours, as you can see in this figure, we have had around, this is at early in the morning, but the latest figure which I have on my mobile, it is telling me that in the past 24 hours, we have had almost 300 millimeters of rainfall, and in 12 hours, we have 206 millimeters of rainfall. So we are having more rainfall in less time, and this has this lends support to the what the earlier speaker said, that we are going to see more and more rainfall in less amounts of time. So we have to prepare for this. So similar systems was proposed for Guwahati, and it is in progress. So they are having 18 automatic weather stations in the pipeline, and other cities should also take similar measures so that they can at least have information on where there is heavy rainfall. There is wide variability of rainfall. In South Mumbai, the average rainfall is around 1800 millimeters per year, and in North Mumbai, it is around 2500 millimeters per year. And so this variability is also seen in the daily rainfall with variations. Then coming to the structural measures, consider this simple two-channel system, two-pipe system. So we have 3 units of flow coming in from the left side and 3 units of flow coming from the right side. Now in the next channel, you will have 6 units of flow going in. And in the subsequent channel, which may be constricted because of constructions or whatever reason, you have capacity only for 4 units. So obviously, if you are having 6 units coming in and only 4 units capacity downstream, obviously there will be overflows and flooding will happen. So now the main challenge is there is no space for constructing new pipelines. There is no space for digging up the roads. So how do I contain these extra 2 units? So let us look at some of the measures which we can contain. So we do this what is known as attenuation. Those who have done electrical engineering will understand the term, or simply by providing storage in common language. So if I store 1 unit before the 4 unit pipe, before the 6 unit pipe, and make sure that only 4 units is going downstream, then obviously there will be no flooding in the affected area. So let us see what are the various storage techniques which are available to us. So these are known by different names in different countries. In Europe, they are known as sustainable urban drainage systems. In USA, they are known as best management practices. In Australia, they are known as water sensitive urban design. In India, they are known by a much simpler term. We simply call it Jugaad. So the techniques include infiltration, percolation, porous pavements, rooftop storage, parking area storage, storage in the ditches, dry ponds, wet ponds, inline detention storage, and underground concrete basins. Let us have a look at each of them one by one. Now, this is a picture from the city of Portland in the state of Portland in USA. I had gone there some years back, and you see that on the rooftop they have got a very nice garden, and they have passed a legislation that whatever green area permeability I am losing during constructing the building, that much permeability I have to provide on the rooftop. So you can see that this is on the 14th floor. So you can see that similar permeability is maintained, same amount of recharge is taking place. So as far as the rainwater is concerned, it has still got the same amount of recharge available as was before the building. And that is what one of the ways in which we can reduce the discharge. So this shows more. So once you have the green area on the roof, you can lead the water through pipes, take it to the downstream, and all around the building provide an infiltration pit. And there are various configurations of infiltration pits. So if you type infiltration trench in Google, you will get more than 1 million pictures. So you can choose the one whichever is most appropriate to your town, city, or village, as the case may be. Another problem that we see is that now everybody wants to have paved footpaths, paved roads, paver blocks. Now the main challenge is that these paver blocks are heavy concrete blocks. They are totally impervious. And as you can see from this picture in Amritsar, because they are impervious and there is not proper connectivity to drains, ponding of water happens. You have all sorts of pollutants in the water system, and it is not pleasing at all. Plus it leads to outbreak of diseases in the monsoon. So also there is no groundwater recharge, there is heavy flooding, and lot of muck to clean up after the rainfall is over. So the alternative is simple: provide porous pavements. Why do we have to have solid pavements? Make the pavements have some porosity. And porous pavement, as defined by ASTM, is one with porosity and permeability high enough to allow water to readily pass and significantly influence hydrology, routing habits, and other positive environmental effects. There are two basic designs. One is asphalt or concrete pavement lacking finer aggregate. So simply finer aggregate. So we are authorizing the contractors not to put extra material. Instead, they can put less material. I don't mind paying them the same price as long as it does not cause flooding. Then the other ones are open cell cement blocks, and they are designed to provide a void content of 15 to 25%. So let us see how they can be laid out. So here you can see on the left, you have these hollow paver blocks in which vegetation can also grow. So this serves both as a support for parking your cars as well as green areas for providing the vegetation, and looks very pleasing. It looks aesthetic, and it reduces the problem of flooding, enables groundwater recharge, and so on. On the right hand side, we see that the trees provide permeable resins around the trees instead of totally concreting them right up to the neck and suffocating the trees. So these simple measures will be very effective. So even if you put 20% of this, it will reduce 80% of the flooding in the critical areas. Then the next is source control, rainwater harvesting. Now, common misconception amongst the public is that rainwater harvesting means groundwater recharge. So they think that I simply put a pipe from the roof and lead it to the ground, and that is rainwater harvesting. But those of you who are engineers, they will know that in some areas we have sandy soil, other areas we have hard rock. So obviously, groundwater recharge is not possible in rocky areas. So rainwater harvesting actually can be done at any level. I can store the water on the rooftop, as you see in the left picture. I can store it at the ground level on the right picture, and I can construct an underground tank and store the water underground. One other thing which you will notice that the rate of rainfall is in millimeters per hour, whereas the rate of recharge is in millimeters per year. So how can the water recharge unless you provide a storage? And that is what the huge reservoirs and ponds and talabs in the villages do. You are storing the water during heavy rainfall, and gradually over months, it recharges the groundwater. Now, one of the professors in UK at Imperial College actually constructed these rooftop rainwater rooftop tanks, So of different sizes. So if we consider with Indian context, you have a 100-liter Syntex tank, 200-liter, 500-liter, and 1000-liter tanks. So he installed these in one of the localities, measured the inflows, outflows, rainfall, etc. And he found that a 100-liter tank could reduce the overflow by 11%, and a 1000-liter could reduce the overflow by 43%. So theoretically, it means that if everybody puts a 1000-liter tank in their premises, it will reduce the flooding by 40%. So instead of 4 feet of water, I will have only 2 feet of water, which is much more manageable. Then one can modify the system. You can have both solar harvesting as well as the panels can lead the water into the tank. And one should assume that this is not for potable water. Other than drinking, it can be used for all the purposes. And even if you want to drink it, if you boil it for 20 minutes and allow it to cool, most of the bacteria are killed in extreme cases. So these are two examples. One is near Nashik in Maharashtra. You see simple arrangement. You have the pipes leading from the roof into the tank and the bottom pipe going into the taps in this public toilet somewhere on the way from Mumbai to Nashik. Then on the right, you see a similar arrangement in the other side of the world in Brazil. Almost similar. So people have the ability to think and implement what they think. Simple techniques, simple methods, but if implemented, they will go a long way in reducing the flooding in the urban areas. Then detention ponds or holding ponds, as they are known locally, also provide a good option. Strictly the difference is the detention ponds are dry between events. Detention ponds have some water always, and wetlands have some plants in them. Now, this is a detention pond in Japan. At the moment, you can see a tennis court. People are playing tennis, having a nice time. You can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, around 12 tennis courts. And note the level of the clubhouse on the right. You can count around 25 to 30 steps leading to the top on the bottom right-hand corner. Now, see what happens during heavy rainfall. So the entire tennis court converts into a holding pond, and this is the way forward. So all our playing utilities, football fields, play fields, open spaces, gardens, and so on, they should be located in low-lying areas so that they can be recreational areas in normal times. And maybe 4, 5, 10 days of the year when it really rains heavily, we can use them for holding the water, and they will not cause any damage to the residents in other areas downstream of the holding pond. So after the 2005 floods, we also looked at holding pond options for Mumbai. And because Bombay is so highly populated, there was no space for the holding pond in any of the areas. So we had to look at a holding pond online, that is on the river itself. So as you can see on the left, you can see the 6-meter high walls of the river. So we constructed a small weir which allows water to raw sewage to pass through during the normal times, and during heavy rainfall, this mini weir provides holding capacity of 3000 cubic meters. So if this weir had not been there, all that 3000 cubic meters would have reached the downstream area immediately, thereby causing flooding. But now we are storing this, and now it is released gradually. So if you go back to the first figure, we are actually storing that extra 1 unit here and releasing it slowly so that there is no flooding on the downstream. So I am happy to let you know that after the construction of these walls and provision of these weirs, there has been no flooding within the 9-kilometer stretch of the Mithi River in Mumbai. Other areas get flooded, but that is because the measures have not been completed in those areas. So this is the second holding pond which was constructed upstream. As you can see, the principle is the same. During normal times, it just allows water to pass through, it is dry, and during heavy rainfall, water ponds up behind the weir or the walls that have been constructed. Now, if there is no space, what do we do? So we can then use the existing playing grounds, open spaces, and construct underground holding pond. Just as we have got underground car parks in many of the malls, so instead of holding cars, we can hold the water. So whenever there is heavy rainfall, all the water is stored in these underground water park, I should call it, holding pond, water storage facilities. And as you can see in the picture on the right, these are around 9 meters to 11 meters high. So such underground tanks have been installed in many cities now. I visited the one in Barcelona in Spain. There they have got around 11 underground holding ponds, each the size of a football field. They were built for the Olympics at that time, and they have reduced significantly the flooding in the low-lying areas. And other advantage is that, see, if I want to increase the size of the drains and replace the existing drains for say 7 kilometers long, as it happened in Hong Kong, it would take 10 years to complete. And this time is not available to us, or not the space is available. So the only option is that I have to construct huge underground holding ponds in suitable locations by proper planning, make sure that the necessary slope and storage is available. And this is the way forward for highly jam-packed cities like Bombay, Delhi. So the future roadmap, see, we should use the catchment as the unit of planning. So all the people who have studied hydrology know that water is planned using catchments and not the political boundaries or ward boundaries or city boundaries. And these sustainable urban drainage practices, best management practices, or Jugaad should be part of the master plan. We need to identify location for source control, on-site detention, inside detention. We have to identify suitable low-lying areas, river floodplains to be used as parks and holding ponds, and we have to improve the drainage features of existing drains. So in this direction, we have also done some work, and I was involved in writing the chapters on these for the NDMA Urban Flood Disaster Management Guidelines, which are available on the NDMA website. And last year, the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, through the CPHO, they released the first storm drainage manual for design of stream drainage systems in August 2019, and they can be downloaded from the CPHO website. You all must be aware of the Amrit mission, where they have identified 500 cities for Amrit. And if you look at the thrust areas, 4 out of the 5 thrust areas pertain to water. So you have water supply, sewerage, stormwater drains to reduce flooding, and enhancing amenity values of cities by creating and upgrading green spaces, parks, and recreation. So item 3 and item 5, they can be addressed by what we have covered in this presentation. And even if one of the participants implements it, I will be very happy that my presentation has been found useful. So thank you for listening.